All right.
Yay, it didn't take it back to vertical. We stayed horizontal today.
You never know
I
with
know.
technology.
I know.
Like it likes to switch it up on you, don't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, welcome everybody back to Ruin. Today, Marcy and I have the amazing pleasure, the honor even,
Oh my God.
of having Wendy with us.
Wendy, sliding toward the table a little bit more. There you go.
Is that better? Okay.
You got to get that mic up in there though.
I know.
Okay,
Okay, I'm just not really good with them.
Well, that's gonna change. I think. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's gonna change.
Well, you know, whenever Marcy invited me to be on here, I knew not to tell her no.
Okay. You could have though. You could have
And
said no.
no, it's in my best interest not to.
Mm-hmm.
She's put in my life to make me grow.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
I've learned better.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a lesson I need to yet learn.
Well, and for those that don't know, Wendy is actually Marcy's sister.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So she's had a lifelong learning experience, I guess, then.
Yes, with Marcy, yes. I think she has a learning experience with me too.
Yes.
I'm sure.
Yes. Yes.
There's not that many relationships that are as close as sisters, though. You know, having a sister myself, even though we're not close in age, like there's just such a understanding. I think you just get each other, you know, all the time. Like if there's anybody in this world that I know knows me, it's my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like some comfort in that, and there's also some discomfort in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Because like, you know, when you're maybe not even your healthiest, right? And like the first one that can probably spot it is your sister.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I really, you know, my sister and I don't have filters with one another, and so we call each other out on it, you know, and so that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an interesting relationship. I think it's a precious relationship that, you know,
Yeah.
I wish everybody could have, honestly, because my sister's she is always in my corner. Like she thinks I'm stupid, you know, sometimes, but she's still in my corner.
She's in your corner, even
Right? Even
Yeah,
if
no,
I'm stupid, like she is there.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell her she's stupid, but you better not
That's
tell her
right.
she's stupid.
That's
Yes.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like everybody
Mhm.
needs that person in their
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think from the get-go though, mine and my sister's relationship was trying to be kept from being that close.
Mm.
I mean, it just from the circumstances and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it was like there was something that was working against me and her becoming that close,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't work.
Right. Well, and it probably made you closer, and actually,
I think in
because
the
of that.
end now, I think
Yeah.
it
Right,
has.
because you had to fight for it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anything you have to fight for, you appreciate more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One thing's for sure, she's been with me through thick and thin, through the good, the bad, and definitely the ugly of me.
Well, and I'm sure
And
she would
so-
say the same thing about
Absolutely.
you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the things that's so precious, though, is that there's no judgment in sistership, right? There's no
Right.
judgment. It's just, this is my sister,
Yeah.
and I will have her back no matter, you know. And so you don't even see the good, the bad, and the ugly. You just see, this is my sister, and I love her, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I think that transforms people.
Yeah.
It transforms both of you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's good stuff.
I wanted Wendy to come on. We both did,
Yeah.
obviously.
You still need to come in closer, though, Weedy.
We got to get
There
you
we
in
go.
there.
We're scooting up.
So we
Is that
were
better?
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
better.
trying to figure out what we were going to talk about. And this morning, Scott had posted something, and the word intimacy is in it. And it just hit me. And I was like, I really think that people don't know what that means, and would like it would benefit a lot of people to have a practical, I don't want to say teaching because, you know, but a practical explanation of what that is to individual people, like what intimacy with the Lord looks like, you know, in your life, and what it looks like in your life and in my life, because we hear these words and we think we know what it means, but I think a lot of times we make things bigger than they really are.
Yeah.
We like to make things complicated.
Yes, when it's really simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, intimacy for me has probably over the years kind of evolved, and it looks different than what it used to look like. And I think that it grows as you grow,
Yeah, that's good.
because for me, like, my understanding of what intimacy was very surface level, and it started with me thinking that it was something that I had to work for, instead of a place that I lived from,
Right.
which is vastly different. And that might sound complicated, but actually it's more of an awareness than anything else.
Right.
So whenever it first started out, like I said, I thought it was a place that I had to work into. I thought it was, because if you think about your relationship with the Lord and being intimate with the Lord, and then kind of, for me, I was coming from a place of, what does intimacy look like between human beings? And that's a place that you have to grow into that as well.
Right.
It's something that's just not automatically established and there. It's something that you have to work towards. So I was coming at intimacy with the Lord from that aspect. And so I would set aside time to be with the Lord, pray, read the Bible, worship. And then, as life goes on, I found that was like this right here, that time was, because life gets busy and life just happens.
Yeah.
And as much as I would want to try to protect that space, and make sure that I had that time, sometimes I just didn't, for whatever reason, whether, I was just so overwhelmed and overworked because of life or life circumstances and being taken off guard, and, whatever, just whatever. But then as time went on, I began to realize that the Lord is not just in a place that is specified that I set aside time for.
Right.
Like, He's with me all the time, everywhere, in anything and everything. And so as time has gone on, I've recognized that even if I haven't gotten my time in with the Lord for several days, that doesn't mean that I have lost my traction.
Right.
Because I may feel distant, but He's not any more distant than what He's ever been.
Right.
So then it comes back to what's true. And the truth is, He's faithful even whenever I'm not.
Right.
And He establishes and protects and keeps that spot that we've built together even whenever I'm not capable.
That's so good.
And it really does, for me, I'm not saying that it's like this for everybody, but for me, it's become more of an awareness of Him, especially in those moments whenever I'm overwhelmed and things are out of control and my mind wants to be taken away from awareness of Him, that then I really seek to take a breath and know He's with me in this moment and be aware of His presence in the moment. And for me, that keeps me in that place with Him that started out by me working for it, if that makes sense.
It does. And one thing that you said that really stuck out to me as you were talking about, as you continue on in the relationship, it deepens. And that's our perspective, right?
Right. That's our perspective.
Right. But He's already to the depths. He's already seen you from your beginning to your end, and He's all in. And so, that speaks so much in my heart to again, his faithfulness and His willingness to long suffer and to even be put on the back burner for, decades. right? Like he's just pouring out his love every day because his mercies, again, are new every morning. And we can ignore him for decades, right? But then the moment that we turn to him, he is there.
He's there.
He's there. And he is so willing to
Mhm.
encompass you and embrace you and draw you into the depths of him.
Yeah. And I have found too that my time with him isn't about trying to draw him closer. It is actually letting walls down that I didn't know I had.
Yes.
It is him revealing to me those places in my own heart or in my own life that I didn't realize I haven't allowed him to be yet.
Right.
And then depending on, like, because we think about, oh, well, I'm gonna let my wall down, and that, like, you can't do anything without him initiating it, and then you become aware of it, so then you try to work on it, and then in your working on it you realize that you're incapable of doing or getting rid of it.
Right.
So then he comes in and he finishes what he actually started.
Right. So it was never really about you and your
It's
efforts.
never. It's all about Jesus.
Yes.
It's all about what he has done, is doing, and has already completed.
Right.
If you just walk with him and not worry about your issues.
Right. Because again, you know, he stands outside of time. We view it as linear. But it's done. It's done in his eyes and in his view. And we are already what we are from his perspective. And so we get caught up in our hang-ups and all that kind of stuff, but he doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what it's been like. I mean, that's a very condensed version. Right. Very condensed. Because it can get very detailed, but
Yeah. What about you, Wendy? How?
Well, I have only been walking with the Lord for just a short time, and so for me, it's what they would say in recovery, taking off your mask and just being raw, real, and vulnerable. Whenever I think of intimacy, I think of David.
Yeah.
And the way that he was just,
he
was just, open, and he would run to the Lord on everything. And to me, that's the place that I'm getting to at this point.
Right.
Learning how to run to him for everything and just being open. Like, if I'm mad,
right.
Lord, I'm mad at you right now, and it's okay to tell him that.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to be able to be that way in front of him. I mean, it's not like you don't know anyway. And so, I, as a little kid, I used to, I don't know, do you remember that I used to have this special friend that I would go around and talk to? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that.
I do believe that has been the Lord the entire time, because I still, people go think I'm nuts, and it's okay, but I still sit here and talk. I have conversations, and it's like the person that's talking back is me, but I mean, it's common, it's like wisdom
Right.
that doesn't come from me. So I know it's been him all along.
Right.
And it's just like you said, it's like an awareness. I know if I go days without like having that quality time or we like quiet time, we like to label it, some of us, I feel condemned sometimes. But it's just like what you said though, I'm constantly aware of him, and I'm constantly in my head, Lord, what do you think about this? Or Lord, what do you think about that? And did you hear what that I'm always constantly having this conversation in my head to him. And I think to me that's what the intimacy is for me at this point.
Well, and I think too that like that religion and stuff the condemnation from not setting aside a specific time whenever you don't do that or whatever happens that you don't get that time. I think that is religion and tradition, because relationship, whenever you think about relationships like ebb and flow,
Right.
even in the best of relationships. Like, I know probably the closest relationship that I have in my life is the one I have with my husband,
Yeah.
And I've never been any closer to anybody, any human being in my life than I am to him. And yet I can even tell you our relationship has the ebb and flow, and even creation speaks of ebb and flows.
Yeah.
Like if you just watch creation and how the Lord has created things, the ocean has high tides and low tides, and that just speaks of even like spiritual lessons to how even the spiritual aspect of relationship will ebb and flow. So
you're saying that when we feel dry as toast, that's just
she is using my own words against me. Touche.
So when we feel like it's a dry season, that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't feel that way. And you were talking about David, and the thing that hit me, like David accepted himself.
Yes.
He accepted all of himself. And that's why he was able to run free, unabandoned for the Lord, is because there was, at the end of it, he knew he was accepted, and therefore he accepted himself.
Yeah, that's good right there. That's good, because I mean, you look at David,
right?
And I look at myself and all the ways that I judge myself and how I messed up. But if I was to judge myself, and listen, I know the Bible says don't judge, not even yourself.
Right.
But compared to David, I'm doing pretty good. But I mean, David is not the measurement by which we measure our life, right? We're not supposed to measure at all. But David gives me hope, you know?
Because he made some big mistakes.
Yes. Yeah.
He was very self-centered in multiple times, right?
Yeah.
Multiple scenarios. And it cost him, but he never let that come in between his relationship with the Lord.
Right.
And that's the big, like, he didn't wallow when he was corrected, right? Mm-hmm. Because he just took it in, and he understood, oh gosh, yes, I did that. So I'm going to repent. And he already knew that he was good, he was right with the Lord, and that was all that mattered. Even the judgment that was coming at him, that he knew was coming at him, didn't
from other
sway
people.
him.
Right.
Because he knew that God didn't judge him, so he wasn't going to judge himself anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good right there. That's good. Like, yeah, David gives me hope.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. Another thing too. I mean, I'm not saying that the man didn't have honor while he was alive, but look at how much more honor he has been given, since his death. I mean, thousands of years later, we're still talking about him, and it really, I believe, it was because of his intimacy with the Lord that made him relevant, that the Lord was able to move through him the way that he did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that reliance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think about going back to what you were saying about David, and how he didn't let his own judgments come between him and the Lord. And a lot of time, or his self-judgment, or feeling sorry for himself, or whatever it was. What did you say? It was that
was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, the thought for me was like, really, whenever we do feel like things are coming between us and the Lord,
right,
it's on our end.
Yeah,
it's never the Lord.
Never the Lord.
It's never the Lord. So anytime that we feel like, oh, there's something between us, and then it's not the Lord putting up a block or whatever. It's whatever it is that we are giving more attention and more value to.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just my thought there. So.
Well, and I got a rabbit trail now.
Okay.
But
on a rabbit trail.
But there are these seasons. There have been these seasons where you do feel like the voice isn't as strong, right? The visions dry up, right? And you feel like your giftings are not working anymore, and we want to panic and make it about something we've done, because again, like, we think in a right-wrong mentality.
Right.
We think that, if I do everything right, then all of these things are gonna remain, and so I must have done something wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And God's mad at me, and all of that kind of stuff. But the truth to those things is, if we put too much attention on those gifts, even though they're good, right? If we put even too much attention on the way that God chooses to come, then he will come another way.
And we'll miss
And
him.
we'll miss him. Yeah.
Because he wants to teach us that the wind blows where it wants.
Yeah.
And we have to catch it. And so we think we're in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really the goodness of God, the mercy of God to teach us how to catch the wind.
Yeah.
Mm.
You know, Graham Cook has a excellent book, and it's a little bitty, it's a small book, but the name of it is called Hiddenness and Manifestation.
Okay.
And it is talking about the cycle, because these are the cycles that the Lord leads us through. But it's, excuse me, he's talking about there are seasons in our life where the Lord manifests himself, and we are very aware of the Lord, and and we feel like it's a very fruitful season, and you know, the Lord is very easily found, and we feel like we're flourishing in our relationship with him. And then again, like you said, all of a sudden all of the rivers dry up,
Yeah.
and you're like, Lord, where are you? And that's the hiddenness of the Lord. And it's in the hiddenness of the Lord that so many things happen in our hearts.
Yes.
In that season. We search for the Lord in deeper ways.
Yep.
But we also take what we've learned in the midst of manifestation, and we live out that truths and the revelations that we've learned through faith
Right.
in the cycle of hiddenness, so that it's not just something that we experience, but it's something that actually we become,
Well,
and it can never be taken from us.
yeah, and that's you establishing the faithfulness in your own heart.
Yes.
You know, because faithfulness comes from the Lord, and we're given a seed of faith,
Mm-hmm.
and that's us learning how to walk out that faith and become faithful
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah, but that is an excellent book if you can find it. It's
I'm gonna
called
go get it.
It's called
Me too.
Hiddenness and Manifestation by Graham Cook. And you know, you talk about hiddenness. Well, you know, is it Song of Solomon where he leads her into the desert to woo
It
her?
is. Yeah.
Well, that's part of the hiddenness as well, to actually be seeking for the Lord and go wherever it is that
Yep.
he's leading you, so that there's a deeper a deeper intimacy that is established. And, and you know, the thing is, you don't search and seek for the Lord when he's manifesting himself.
That's right. Yeah.
You don't need to.
No.
I mean, it's that he's there.
Right. Yeah.
So, but it's essential. The hiddenness is even probably more so, well, maybe not, but just as essential than his manifestations.
And so intimacy births even greater desire.
Yes.
Do you think that during that dry time too, it gives us an opportunity to see our own hearts and where we're at with him?
Character development.
Yeah.
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 It's a time of revealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, and just, you know, a time of trust, like what you were saying, but it's trusting what he has already placed in you in faith, you know, and because even in that, like when those things start to manifest and you know, I kind of just came through some of that, but our tendency is to look at that thing, right, and to see, oh, it's still here. I thought I was over this issue is still here, but that's actually trying to rob you of the attention of the Lord. And what he's doing, he's bringing it up so that he can deal with it, not so that we deal with it, right? All we're having to do is just, oh, I see it. Okay, Lord, I give that to you, and just keep walking and just walk out of that thing.
Yeah.
You know, like we make it complicated, but it really is as easy as you just determining in yourself, okay, I'm going to walk with the Lord. Like I see this thing and I feel it and I know it doesn't feel good, but I'm going to choose to walk with the Lord and not pay that any more attention because it's robbed enough of my life from me.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go into true life and let go of those things. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know somebody who's dealing with an issue right now, and I was telling him, I was like, listen, all you have to do is obey, and then just let the Lord deal with
Right.
with whatever. And I said, I really believe that part of getting you free from this aspect of your life is tied to your obedience.
Yeah, because it's a choice.
It is a choice, but the two seem very unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to give any detail because,
Right, of course.
yeah, but the Lord was directing someone to do something that seemed totally unrelated to the issue that they were dealing with in their life.
Mm-hmm.
But I really and truly and honestly believe that the obedience to follow the Lord in this area will take care of what is not even related over here.
Right.
Because it is an issue of focus.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is an issue of focus. And if you can, and even if you do go over here and you obey, and then this issue is still an issue, who's to say that if you continue following, even though it's still an issue and it's still going on, eventually it will be taken care of?
Right.
But that's the way the Lord works in every area of our life.
Yep.
Because, listen, God sees us as a finished work.
Yep. He sure does.
He is not concerned about our issues. He's not concerned about our addictions. He's not concerned about, when he sees us, he doesn't see any of that. And if we can begin to see what he sees, which he's looking at us, and if we can look at him and see him, then we lose our focus of our issues and we just become like him.
Right.
It's that easy.
Yep.
Well, you can't fix self through
No.
self anyway.
No.
You know what I mean?
No,
and,
but
and it's just like what that there's a verse that Brad McClendon said. It's like you turn to the Lord and the veil is removed.
Mhm.
And it's the same thing. I mean, you turn to the Lord, your focus is off of yourself, and you're able to operate,
Mhm.
Right.
in the spirit, because your thoughts, your mind, your eyesight, and your focus is. Look, I've been working on that too. I can say.
We all have.
I've always, I think Brad calls it navel picking. I'm bad
Yeah.
about navel picking. I'm bad about looking at myself saying I need to fix this. I mean, that's what we're taught in recovery.
Right. Well, I think even in childhood, like there's
Life teaches you that.
life
Yeah.
teaches you that, because I mean in my opinion, the prevalent spirit over all of us is a critical spirit.
Mm-hmm.
The spirit of this world is a critical spirit, and it will crush you
Yeah.
if you listen to it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been the demise of a lot of people, because they had the ears to hear, but they were listening to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that it's evident that we can't fix ourselves because of all the self-help books that are out there.
Right.
Listen, if we could fix ourselves through a self-help book, and I'm not saying that the Lord can't use that.
Right. Right.
Like, the Lord will humble himself and come in and give you grace by whatever means that he deems
Yeah.
you're going to find him in through.
Yeah.
You know, it just so happens that for me, he showed me that it ain't going to be through any other way other than him and him alone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there, because I know way too much. I know too
Right.
much. And so I'm just thankful that he still comes through to people in different ways. So, if you found help through a self-help book,
Good.
praise God, the
Right.
Lord came through for you on that one.
Yeah.
But it was the Lord,
Right,
It
right.
was the Lord.
And even in recovery, like I went through recovery, so I'm not knocking recovery at all, or the 12 steps or any of that, because the Lord does work through that. But sometimes, we can get so focused on the steps rather than on the person
Yes.
behind the steps.
Yes.
And we can apply those steps to every area of our life, and have a tendency to kind of forget about him.
It
Right.
becomes
It becomes a formula.
it becomes a
that
formula
we
and a
apply to
program
everything.
instead of a relationship.
Exactly.
Then-
Exactly.
Then you're not really in relationship, you're in function.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is which is self-help, which is idolatry.
Yes.
which is, replacing him, you know what I
Yes.
mean? And
Yeah.
so it's just,
It's a
the
spiral.
Lord works through those things. He does.
Mhm.
He does, and he meets us there. It's just,
as long as those things point us back to him
Right.
and not
Always.
away from him.
well, that's just like even in the giftings, the giftings were all there to
Girl,
point
yes.
us to him, not
Yes.
to just point us to them,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Well, and I was telling Scott earlier about a conversation I had with the Lord where I was like, I don't know how to do this gifting thing. Like, I just need you to tell me, like, I need to learn. And the Lord was like, well, you can learn about the gifting or you can learn about me.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'm gonna choose you. You know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna choose you.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't, like, we think we have to do something, talking about the giftings, we think we have to be perfect in the giftings, right? Like, we think that we have to, like, do all that's kind of what we've created as a mindset in our culture, is of what giftings are supposed to look like. Well, what if giftings really were really humble? What if giftings were quiet? What if giftings were hidden? What if giftings drew other people up above themselves, and let other people get the glory?
I think that's exactly what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah.
Before I went through on my journey, and it has been a journey of understanding giftings and then learning about them and then pursuing them and then eventually getting to the point to where even that brought me back around to the simplicity of Jesus.
Right.
Because you can get pretty far out there
Oh yeah.
and really miss the mark.
Well, and it becomes about self.
It becomes
We
about
don't
self.
realize it.
Right. But even in that, what I was going to say was before I went on that journey, and I was just pursuing the Lord just to know Him.
Mm-hmm.
I realized several years later that I was actually functioning in gifts and didn't realize it.
Right.
And then once I become aware of gifts and wanting to know more about it and stuff, it was almost like they went away.
Because he is jealous for us.
He is. But not everybody's experience is like that.
Right.
I realize that.
Right.
This is just my own testimony. It's not everybody's. Not everybody experiences that. But the Lord knows my heart,
Mm-hmm.
and He knows my shortcomings.
Right.
And so that's the road that I was led down. And so, but I've come back around. I made a full circle now, and I realized that all I need is Jesus.
Right.
Like,
he really is enough.
He's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need. And then if the giftings happen, praise God. But I don't even have to be aware that it's happening.
Right.
You
And I think that when you're not aware, I think that's really when you're in love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're just in love with the Lord and His
Yes.
people, and
Yes.
you're just loving them,
Yeah.
and it's natural.
And that's what it really means by, what's the verse in, my phone's recording, but it's in 1 Corinthians when it says, all this will fade away except
Yeah.
for love.
Yeah.
It's not talking about the gifting stop. That's
Right.
People have misunderstood that. It's not that the giftings ever stop, because Jesus is Jesus,
Right.
and He's always going to be, and the gifts are actually an extension of who He is.
Right.
The gifts are actually, but you're no longer focused on gifts for gifts. You've now become fully
Yes.
aware of love, and the gifts are no longer a focus.
That's so right. That's so good. It's coming into, the Holy of Holies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being face to face with God.
Yeah.
Which is what we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus is, I grew up Southern Baptist, right? So there was a term that I heard a lot growing up, Jesus is all we need. Jesus is all we need. And I can remember thinking, okay, but how do I get Him? Like, what does this look like practically in my life? I was so young at the time, I didn't have even I couldn't communicate that properly, but I was wondering how does that work?
Oh yeah.
And then I started attending a different church later in life that was really good with teaching,
Mm-hmm.
very good about teaching principles and stuff. And I began to learn, this is how Jesus works this out through teachings and stuff. But now I've come again full circle to where Jesus really is all we need. Like
Right.
it's him. He's a person that walks with us, and he'll lead us if we'll follow him.
Right.
We don't have to know. We just have to obey.
Right. Well, and what do you think is the biggest hindrance for people with following the Lord?
Unbelief,
Unbelief. What do you think?
It's the same.
Same.
Doubt, unbelief.
fear.
So do you think it's unbelief and fear and doubt towards the Lord or towards self?
I think it's probably a combination. I don't think it's either or. I think it's both and. I think that the biggest hindrance I'm just speaking for me. The biggest hindrance for me has been the doubt that I am hearing the Lord properly.
I can relate to that.
And then the doubt of that invokes fear, and then it leads me into unbelief. And I cannot tell you how many times the Lord has told me, even if you make a mistake, do you not believe that I can cover you?
Right.
So even if I miss what he's saying,
Right.
only because my heart is right,
Right.
because my heart is trusting toward him, and even if I'm not hearing him correctly, because of the position of my heart, he will honor that and he will cover me.
Right.
But we're not taught that either. Seriously, we're not taught that. I think the first time that I've ever heard that was through you guys. We're taught that either you obey, or if you don't obey, you're actually condemned to hell. If you don't obey. And a lot of times I think that it really is the heart, the longing of the heart. Lord, I want to obey. It's kind of like with Paul, I'm the spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. And I think that the Lord understands that. I think that he sees that, he understands that. And, but a lot of times whenever people's like, they're so scared, is this really the Lord? Is this really, first of all, they're not taught to hear. They're not taught that they can hear. A lot of people, whenever I tell them, well, I hear the Lord, they're like, what do you mean you hear the Lord? Do you hear him audibly? Do you hear him? And I'm like, well, there's many ways that he speaks. They're not taught this. They think that it was something that happened way back 2,000 years ago in the biblical days, and that all has stopped for today. And that's not true,
Well, that's not relationship.
No,
either.
it's not. And then whenever I got into recovery is whenever I started to begin to realize, oh, this is the Lord speaking to me. This is the Lord,
But it
and I
had
had
been
no
there
clue.
Your whole life. It
My
had
whole
been there.
life, yeah. It was my little special friend, but I called him special friend, and it ended up just being him all along.
Right.
But nobody ever taught me that. So a lot of times I think hearing the Lord, sometimes it's just ignorance. They've
Yeah.
not been taught.
Yeah.
They've not been taught.
Yeah. The word says, my sheep hear my voice.
Right.
Yep.
My sheep hear my
Man,
voice.
there's so much comfort in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
And then if you really look at the life of Jesus, I'm getting ready to blow some minds here. Look at Jesus's life through the Gospels and recognize who it was that was hearing him, as opposed to who it was that wasn't.
Yeah.
Because we think that his sheep are automatically those that are found inside church.
Right.
Whenever in the Gospels, it was the religious establishment at that time. They had not been yet called a church, but it was what we would consider, if it was in modern times, they would be the church. They were the ones that persecuted him, despised him, like argued with him, but it was the sinners,
Yeah.
the ones that you wouldn't find in the temple,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that heard him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, in saying that, whenever you think about my sheep hear my voice, and especially since we're in, or since we're in leadership over the body, the church, the local body, not the body, but the local body. It really makes me really want to really pursue humility
Yeah.
in absolutely everything, and remain teachable
Yeah.
and open,
Mhm.
because I don't want to ever miss him
Right.
Right.
and think that I know what he looks like, I know
Right.
what he sounds like.
Right.
But I do, but always be open to he may come in a way that I'm not familiar, that I'm not used to hearing, I'm
Right.
not used to seeing.
Right.
So,
Well, and he loves to be lowly, doesn't he?
oh my goodness, yes.
Mhm.
Yes. You know what? I will never forget when we first moved back to North Carolina from Canada. I learned about Moravian Falls in Canada. And so that was whenever I found out that it was in North Carolina, I was like, Scott, we have got to go to Moravian Falls. And so that was one of the first places that we went to when we moved back to North Carolina. And not knowing anything about the place, but we found the waterfall and the campground and stuff. And, we just walked around and everything. And I was like, I can sense the Lord here.
Right.
Like I can sense him here. But as far as like the really supernatural experiences that people were talking about, nothing like that happened. But I was sharing with someone that lived in the area about, they lived in Taylorsville at the time, and I was sharing with them, and I was like, yeah, y'all to go check it out, right? There's like, honest to goodness, there's nothing extravagant about Moravian Falls.
Right. Right.
It really is a barn stable
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
unless you get up in the presence of the Lord.
Right.
And you really, because anyway, it was a huge eye opener for me, because as they went and they checked it out, they drove through and they was like, well, they went we didn't, ain't nothing big about that, whatever. I was like,
Right.
okay, but Jesus came in a manger.
Yes.
Mhm.
He came in a barn stable, and it was a huge eye opener for me, in that the Lord will always be found in humility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You will always be able to find the Lord in humility. If you can't find him anywhere else, you will find him in humility.
Well, and as you said that, condemnation is the enemy of humility.
Mm-hmm.
Because what condemnation does is it actually keeps you from humility.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps you a victim, right?
Yeah.
And it blinds you to becoming humble enough to actually see what the Lord is wanting to do.
Yeah. Condemnation is
Toxic.
it's full of pride.
Yeah.
It's nothing but pride taking a swing at you. That's
Right.
all condemnation is.
Right.
Because, we're nothing without the Lord.
Right.
We're nothing without the Lord.
Right.
And to think that we could ever get anything right outside of him, that's a setup.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but again, we want to, I like, my issue has always been that, well, I want to be important. Like, I want to be important too. But like, you don't realize that your importance is as part of Christ. Like, that is your importance. And everything else is actually attacking that importance.
Mhm.
Everything else is a lesser. you know, and
Yeah.
and it's trying to pull you away from your true inheritance.
Well, you know, I know I've said this before in probably the last 3 podcasts that we've done, but I'm going to say it again because repetition will really help you. It
Yeah.
helps me.
Yeah.
It helps me. But you know, lower still is closer still.
Yep.
And I was contemplating and meditating on humility and really thinking about that lower still, and how humility never bottoms out.
No.
Humility will never bottom out, but it will exalt you.
Right.
Humble yourself, and at the opportune time, or I may not be saying it verbatim, but basically humble yourself, and once you continue to humble and you get that humble, the Lord will exalt you.
Well, and I mean, I can be wrong, but I think by the time that you're exalted, it's because you're in true humility now.
Yes.
You know, like
Yes.
we keep thinking, okay, I'm in humility now. You know, but like you said, it goes to depths that we don't even understand. You can't see your pride.
Pride blinds
can't.
you.
And so every time that these things come up, you know, it's an opportunity to acknowledge and release again,
Mhm.
and to just say, okay, that's the truth, right? Like, agree with your accuser.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You know what? Like, I can be
There's so much.
self-absorbed. I
Listen,
can do
there's
this.
so much freedom in
Right.
agreeing with your accuser.
Right. And then just let it go and,
Yeah.
and go back to, you know, walking with Jesus
Mm-hmm.
and let him deal with that, because he's not
Yeah.
accusing you.
Mm-mm. No. But this study on humility has been life-changing for me. Like, there's so much peace in it for me.
Right. Well, and again, you know, going back to about David, like, again, he was able to accept himself, and that's humility.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm.
humility is being able to accept what God says that you are, and make that your foundational truth. This is he is in me and I am in him, and that is the truth, and everything else come out of that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have been helping to oversee a church now for how long?
4 years.
It's been 4 years already.
It's been 4 years.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's impressive. No, I think it is. But listen, I don't oversee a church, so
Mhm.
from my perspective, both of you are super impressive. You know,
Oh boy.
super impressive, because you know I get to not do that, and it's great. But
One day you will.
let's not do that. But like, I feel like that you have such a perspective, such a good perspective of humility because of your position. Because I feel like that you have grown so much, don't you? Like in the past 4 years with the Lord, don't you? Don't you think she?
I know I do. I do.
I'm
I do.
at a loss for word. I don't know. I can honestly say I don't feel like it.
Mm.
I will just say that I don't feel like
I
it.
feel like that the Lord has put you where you are, though, because you're so observant. And I just feel like he's taught you so much, and the things that you've encountered, the things that you've seen, and the responses that he's had you release to people, right? Because I would imagine that you guys don't always respond the way that your flesh would want to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Right?
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so these positions have caused you both to rely on the Father even more, right? And so it's birthed all of this
You know,
growth in you.
it really is humbling.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because you have, well, I'm going to say me, I have this idea in my head about what I should look like, what I should do, how I should respond, things I should say, you know, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a picture of perfection, really,
Yeah.
of what I would think perfection would look like.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have all of these situations and circumstances and people that evoke or you know, take me off guard.
Right. Yeah.
But then not only that, but then you know, the just life in general that has its own stress and complications. And you know, you're trying to juggle all of this, and you know, just living from a place of authenticity, transparency, and vulnerability, and recognizing that if I'm going to be transparent, vulnerable, and authentic, then I'm not going to have it all together.
That's good.
And it, you know, it show you think that because there's you're in a pastoral role or a leadership role or whatever, you know, that you ought to be capable. That there's these expectations and you should be capable. And, you know, I started at that place and found out really quickly how incapable I truly am. And it's just, it comes back to more of a reliance on his goodness.
Right. Yeah.
So I think anytime any type of leadership role happens in a church, it's a major opportunity to really understand to a greater degree how much we need him.
Yeah.
That would be, because whenever I started, I was like, Lord, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I don't even think I have an accurate blueprint of what this looks like.
Oh, he loves that. That's his favorite.
Yeah. And so I walk into this just taking what I've learned straight from recovery into the church. And so I'm just like, so I'm not going to build a glass house so you guys can shatter it. So here's me. And I give my testimony of my past and my addiction. So, I mean, they knew where I was straight up front from the get-go.
Right.
And I think that set the pace for them. Because so many times I think in church we love to put on that mask and love to be somebody that we're not. And that's not, I've just learned not to be that. It's so much simpler just to be the ugly me, you know, with all my flesh and everything.
in saying that, the Lord just reminded me, you know, with what you were saying, that to tell the other side of that for me, I can't use that as an excuse to remain where I'm at either, though.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, even though you know, he wants me to be transparent, he wants me to be vulnerable, he wants me to be authentic, that's still not an excuse for whatever's going on in the moment to be fleshly.
Right.
Or to be weak, or to remain in a spot that I'm comfortable in.
Right.
That he still wants the return on his investment of the talents that he's given me.
Right.
And without that, you know, without depending fully on him, there is no growth. But with full dependence on him, there is. And so that even though, you know, there's this, and I think it's a balance. There's this balance, and you know, the pendulum swings one way and then it swings back the other, and if it would ever rest right in the middle, I would love that, but it's never going to, because if it ever did, then I wouldn't need him.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But you know, for me, there was a point in time to where, you know, I'm going through this. This is just who I am. This is what I'm going through, and I'm at this place right now. And you know, he came in and he said, "You're right. You're dealing with a lot, but you're not going to stay here. And if you choose to stay here, then, you know, you're gonna. This isn't the place I've chosen for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I guess what I'm.
Right.
In other words, you can't use what's going on and your own failings and weaknesses as an excuse to remain where you're at, because he still wants you to move forward.
Right. To grow closer to him.
To grow closer to him, but also, you know, to show him working in and through you.
Absolutely. And so, you know, that leads me to another question. Like, you guys are doing this in front of an audience, though. You know, like you're learning how to steward, even, right? Because I mean, I'm not saying that you guys, I feel like that you always are what you always have been, or you always have been what you are. but there is an understanding of working that out. And so you've always heard the voice of the Lord. Like, you know, you've always been a leader. Like, those are things that you guys have always been. But like, can you share with people who don't have that type of experience what it's like to be so open and vulnerable and know that you're growing, and to know that you're doing that in front of a lot of people who have a lot of thoughts about how you're growing?
I think it's freeing.
That's good.
I mean, seriously, I do. And it's kind of like what you said. No, he doesn't want you to remain there. But being open about the process that he's walking you through gives them, you know, kind of like whenever you get a catchphrase, I'll just let go and let God. Okay, that's great. But then show me how to do that. And I think that as I walk through this process with them, or I allow them to see the processes that the Lord puts me through, they kind of get what let go and let God looks like. You know, it's just not a catchphrase anymore. Oh, that's meat. I can walk. I can do that. I can put experience to this catchphrase and understand what it says. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think that is the main thing for me, is just being open and honest is freeing. I don't have to put up a facade. I don't have to be somebody that I'm not, because that's tiring. And it gets old after a while.
Right.
And so, and plus it brings acceptance too. The good, the bad, and the ugly. You walking through all of that and seeing the work of the hand of the Lord in that person's life, and you walking through them, that's long suffering. It's teaching them how to long suffer with you. And in turn, you do that with them. And it's teaching them patience, you know, to be able to walk, okay, so she's not having a good day today, and this is the process, and this is what's going on, but look now, you know. And I think that's the whole thing what life is about. I mean, that's what the Lord does with us, right? So it's a growth, walking through the people with that, and being able to be that in front of them is kind of like an example, I guess you could say.
I agree. I agree.
Nothing else to add.
I mean, she said it. Now, you know, I think it can get hard whenever there's judgment against it.
And that's really what I was.
Yeah, because there are people who get it,
Yeah.
and they appreciate it, and then there are people who don't get it and they judge you for it.
Yeah.
And with the ones that judge you for it, I just don't pay any attention. Like, I mean, seriously, because ultimately they're judging themselves. Even though, you know, the judgment is directed toward me,
Right.
because it's a judgment, it comes back to them. Judge not lest ye be judged.
Well,
And then with whatever measure they judge is the measure that it's going to be measured back to them.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that. So whenever I come across those that judge me for it, you know, I can't say that I just don't let it bother me, because it's part of their process. And have there been times whenever I can feel the judgment, I can feel it, but very rarely is anything said directly to me.
Right.
Now there are things that are said, but not directed directly toward me.
Right.
I get it third party a lot
So
of times.
yeah, me too. But I really try not to let it bother me.
That's good. I just feel like that there are probably people listening who are called to walk, you know, in similar places that you guys are called to walk. And it probably is very helpful for them to hear that, because the first thing that you want to do when you stand in front of people and they come, you know, and they have thoughts about how you stand in front of them, is self-examine, right? And I think that self-examination has kept people seated that are supposed to stand.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so just knowing that you guys still are dealing with this stuff, right? Knowing that the voices don't lessen, they probably intensify, right? With your walk, they probably get a little bit louder, and so you just have to be more disciplined to put them in their proper place, like you were saying, and not giving them the attention that they want and they long for.
Yeah.
Right, and continuing to walk with the Lord. I just feel like that there's so many people that the Lord is wanting to raise up that's stuck in that place.
Yeah. And I think too that the Lord is definitely calling people forward right now. Definitely calling people forward. And there is a place that and I think the church in general, the whole, when I say the church, I mean the whole church body, there's a place that we have all been longing for and praying for and yearning for. And the only reason that it has not been attained is because there are people who have not stepped into what the Lord's called them to do. Mm-hmm. And it's as simple as being obedient. I mean, it's as simple as being obedient. We talked about it in another podcast. There was an opportunity one morning here in our church. The Lord, the praise and worship was just lingering, and I just got the sense that the Lord was lingering, and He was working on hearts, and there were things that He was putting in the hearts of people for them to step out and worship Him in a different way that morning. And it was an invitation, but because nobody took that opportunity, whatever it was that the Lord wanted to establish that morning had to be reserved for a different time. Mm-hmm. And I keep going back to that morning, because what I had seen was basically what broke out at Asbury.
Yeah, because this was right before Asbury.
It was right before Asbury, and I had seen it. The invitation went forward, and nobody stepped out, and eventually, praise and worship, kind of moved on, and the Lord's presence was still here, but I feel like that there was, He had to, whatever it was that He was wanting to do, it had to be reserved for a different time.
Right, because it was a calling for unity, like everyone having their piece and their part, not just one person
exactly
standing up and
exactly. But that's actually what is hovering as an opportunity over the whole entire body right now.
Right.
Is for people who are in the pews to listen to the prompting that the Lord is putting in their heart and just be obedient. If it's as simple as stepping out in the aisle and just standing there, then step out in the aisle and stand there. Mm-hmm. Could you be thought a fool? Absolutely. But what if Jesus came in on that moment and His presence was in that field, that whole entire place, because of one step of obedience from one individual?
And what if He refused to do that and He didn't?
Well, the opportunity is reserved for a different time.
Right.
And who knows when that time will be.
Right.
It may never come again in our lifetime.
Right. And that's the soberness that comes along with obedience.
Mm-hmm.
Because, He desires obedience over sacrifice.
Yeah.
And we've just, all of us collectively, have to get to a place again where we are in that humility.
Listen, I just got spanked last night. I got spanked by Mr. McClendon and my husband last night, because he was like, you need to get in that pulpit and you need to start speaking, and it ain't just because you hear the Lord, you need to hear Scott. I'm like, oh. So I'm preaching to the choir as I'm sitting here preaching to y'all about this as well. So, it's no condemnation on anybody, just start being obedient.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, boy.
It's going to be great. I'm excited.
Yeah, boy.
I'm excited. I really am excited about what the Lord is. I feel like the rest of this year is just going to be so impactful. And I really do think at the end of the year, we're gonna see so many people in those positions that they have felt unworthy to accompany, to fill. And it's because God he's been doing this deep work, this character development, and this humility. And I mean, across the board, there's so many people I'm talking to right now that have the similar stories of what God's revealing to them. And it really is for the corporate body,
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we are individuals, and I never want to make our relationship with the Lord seem like it's less, but it's never just for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And we need our brothers and sisters to be who God created them to be, to just stand up and be.
We're all so connected.
Yes.
We are so much more connected than what we realize.
Yeah.
So.
We're not going to make it there on our own.
Mm-mm.
We're not going to make it to the depths of what God is wanting to do on the earth. We're not going to see it on our own. But the funny thing is it takes one person's obedience.
Yeah.
And so it's like you said, everything is both and. So it's not all about you, but it is about you too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, that's good. It's not all about you, but it is about you too. That's good. That's a word right there. I'm gonna put that up as my status.
Well, hopefully we'll get that understanding, because again, it's
I need that tattooed across my forehead. And look at it every morning when I get up.
right. Well, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's just how many times have we thought less of ourselves and hadn't done something, or thought more of ourselves and hadn't done something?
Yeah.
The common denominator there is you're thinking about yourself.
Right.
Right. And so that's why we have to get to this place of humility where we really genuinely are just reliant on the Lord and what he is saying and what he is doing, so that we walk like Jesus. We're going to do it. We're going to make it.
We're gonna make it.
We're going to make it.
We're gonna make it.
Well, I don't know how long we've been talking, but this is good. And I'm so appreciative. We're going to have Wendy come back and talk some more.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't scare you away, because I feel like you have so much wisdom and just such a good heart for the Lord. I just feel like that you are so genuine in your love for people and for the Lord. And I'm excited for your life too. I'm excited, just as excited to watch you as I am to watch Marcy, because you both are phenomenal. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to watch you, Gina.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what's the Lord doing with you?
A lot of character development. Continual, constant character development. Yeah, there's what she's talking about, lower still is closer still. I apparently am not close enough. No, but seriously though, like it's been really good, but there is such a season where there's a lot of correction, and it's a tough season, but at the same time, like, you're so thankful.
Yeah.
And so it's a good season. But I feel like I have been in this season since 2020, but it's just intensified.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or actually the end of 2019, but it's just intensified. And so I feel like we're coming to a head somewhere, right?
Yeah. I want to highlight something that you just said, that there was a lot of correction and it was hard, but you're so thankful for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of, like, religion will teach you condemnation, but the correction of the Lord is desirable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the first time that I audibly heard him correct me. And it was so full of love.
Yes.
Like really hard correction. But yet so full of love that after, I imagined myself sitting there before him and saying, "Please, sir, may I have another?"
Yeah.
Because that's how desirable his correction is. So that's how you know it's the Lord. Whenever whatever he says that's correcting you leaves you thankful and wanting more of it.
Well, because his correction is freedom.
Oh,
It's just freedom.
absolutely.
Like, because you don't know what you're bound by
Mm-hmm.
until the Lord comes in, and how he comes in is things manifest, right? And then he's able to come in and bring that correction, and then you can see it,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't see it without him showing you.
And I don't know about y'all, probably just me, because I'm the stubborn donkey that loves to do my way. But whenever he comes in and corrects me, he'll like sit there, kind of like, okay, so what you gonna do? Type deal, like giving me a choice, right?
Yes.
And I'm one who delays. It is a bad thing. It is a bad thing. I sure am. But he will patiently sit there and be like, okay, what you gonna do? You know, there's the way, which way you're gonna go, and he will let me make a decision,
Oh my,
and it's not made for me.
No.
He will let me
Oh,
make
no.
that decision.
Freedom. It's freedom.
And I mean, it's just amazing because eventually I'll be like, okay, Lord, you're right. And,
Oh,
you know, eventually I'll go in that way.
apparently, you know, I am, because one of, I think his favorite phrases with me is, "Are you done?
Girl,
Mhm.
yes.
Are you done? Okay, now go do what I told you." Yes, sir. You know, but
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
again, though, I think that if you have any kind of prophetic tendency, the first thing that hits you is that critical spirit, like we were talking
Yeah.
about.
Mhm.
And so you think that that's the Holy Spirit,
And it's not.
and it is not.
Because there is nowhere in love
No.
for a critical
No.
eye.
Yeah.
But because you're prophetic, right? Because that is the spirit of this world, that's the first thing you tap into. And so then you spend, you know, a lifetime being taught by that, and the rest of your lifetime being untaught by him.
Well, and you know the fruit of a critical spirit is perfectionism,
Oh yeah,
and that's unattainable.
and that's why he's killing me.
Listen, freedom has taken his place amongst his children. He is
That's right.
like he
That's right.
has taken his place amongst his children. So
Right.
we all free, y'all. We're all free,
And
and we're
that's,
just walking that freedom out.
and that's again why this podcast is called Ruin, because everything that we have built up has to come to ruin, because that is not true.
Right.
Like he is deserving of our attention and our affection. And in order to get there, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, there is pain involved, because he has to tear down the idols that we have built up in our lives so that he can take his place in our heart. And that, because that's been our prayer. Lord, I want you to be my everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in his goodness, he says, okay, well, we
Yes.
got to get rid of some stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and so his correction is desirous, and it's so, because every time that he tears those things down, he floods you with himself,
Yeah.
he does.
and you see
And
him
he's so much better.
oh so
Yeah.
much better, and you see him to such a greater degree. And not only that, but as a confessed, you know, introvert, all of a sudden you love everybody else around you more too.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know, you're seeing people in their struggle, and you're not judging them anymore. You're like full of compassion, and you want to go walk with them and help them and just love them, just
Mhm.
help them,
Just to walk with
just
them
to
through
walk with them,
Yeah.
because you recognize how hard that must be, and that they just need a friend, and they just need somebody to love them, not to change them, just to love them.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and man, it connects you on such a deep level, and all of a sudden people start dropping their stones.
Yeah.
You know?
It's good stuff right there.
Ugh. More correction, Lord. We just thank you. Lower still is closer still.
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and listening. And man, my face, I feel the Lord. I'm a mess, and he just
Thank
messed
you.
me up.
Thank you
But
all for
thank
watching.
you, Lord,
Thank
for
you for
watching.
listening.
And hopefully we'll be back next week.
I won't be here next week.
Okay, hopefully somebody will.
I
be here.
won't be here next week. I'm
Right.
in Colorado, but
Right.
But yeah,
We'll see what happens.
I'll be back.
Yes. Yes. Who
All right.
knows? Bye, guys.
Bye. Y'all have a great day.